heavily cloth based. So for those who are just joining in, or who don't know what we've been doing, we are creating a short film. And if you check the Gnomon channel out, we did a previous one that we finished up last year called A Voice in the Hollow. And this is our second short film that we're making. And in the second short film, it is like even more cloth reliant than our first one. So our characters in this world are cloth people. So yeah. So as much as we use Marvelous then, we're probably going to use it even more now. So, yeah. So what you see on my screen right now is one of the characters named Pot. And yeah.
Yeah, he's so cute.
He's a little mage.
Lost my headset. There we go.
What'd you say, Miguel? This is...
Cod is our
we can't.
mage. Can you guys hear me okay?
We're getting some lag from you.
Yeah, you're cutting out a little bit.
I'll just watch.
Okay, so you're just gonna hang out and be quiet. Okay. Yeah. So if like for those who are just joining, I might maybe because I realize we have our own guests, and then we are dual streaming with Marvelous Designer and their guests, and then maybe I should just show a couple things just to kind of preface it a little bit better. So I'm going to load up.
If I can do a quick little thing from my side, because we're still streaming to our YouTube channel. For those of you who are new, who are unfamiliar with how this new setup, this is the second time we've done this with Gnomon, but this is also the first time we have done a paired stream. And for those of you who are new to the YouTube channel, any unhinged comments, I will put you in timeout and I will kick you out. This is your one warning. Be polite, because I know you guys, but we are a guest on another show, and I will banhammer. I'm so sorry, but also please keep focused on the topic. Just a heads up for everybody. This is a different time than we normally have streamed, but also be nice.
Thank you, Megan. For some questions here. Miguel is not in the Caribbean. No, he's at a film festival right now for Voice in the Hollow. So he's there to support it and promote it in Florida. There you go. You can see his badge. And here, just give me a moment while I load this up. So what I'm doing right now is I'm loading up a level, and it's really early. We are in our phase still. We just finalized our first draft, right? And what I have is not really an actual. Yeah, it's really just let's cut in here. It's just a first look.
He's so cute.
Yes. Well, I hope he's cute. So here, what I'm doing right now, I just loaded up Path Tracer. So there are a couple things that we will do differently in terms of Unreal. Our short, and again, let me step back for those who are new. Our short is done all in Unreal. So we're using Unreal Engine. And when we did our first short, we did it we started with a preview version or version 5. And so we didn't actually have any kind of Path Tracer going on. Right now, what I have going on is Path Tracer. You can see this little red bar rendering. So it's going back to not being quite real time, but it looks, in my opinion, it looks pretty good. So again, this is kind of our first look at it here, and it's going to be running kind of slow. If I just turn it off here, we can see we're back in real time. And this is just a very simple animation test, just to see how everything is kind of coming together. And again, you can see he is a full cloth character. So if you check out what he looks like in here without his textures, it might be kind of hard to see. if you're back in here, you can see, if I turn this back on, even his whole body is made out of cloth. So his face, everything is, he's just a cloth fellow. Anyway.
He's just a cloth little guy.
Yes, he's a cloth little guy.
His first day. He's just a little guy.
Yeah. Well, I got it. We were super excited when we got him. We were trying to make him look cute. He does have more challenges than our last one. So like the cloth you see here is not an Unreal simulation. It is actually, let me just turn it on. My computer is kind of going nuts. It's working really hard. That was all simulated inside of Marvelous here. So clothing, and again, this is just to explain for those who don't see, who haven't been following us or who might be new. All his clothing here is actually built in Marvelous, right? So all these pieces, these little balls are buttons, and we are getting our simulation off here. And let me open up maybe a previous version of that, because this one actually has a couple errors in it. And here, it's a little slow because I have Unreal on and I'm streaming. So it could be a little bit rough. I should probably close that. Unless anyone has questions for Unreal. But I think my computer is going to crash if I keep it open while trying to keeping all these open at the same time. Let's step back here. There we are. Now it's running like supposed to run like normal.
Oh, there he goes. Oh, I like his. I do love his little stomps.
Yeah, he's a strange character, but we're happy with how it looks right now. So this is our pipeline. It's all going to be rendered in Unreal. Our clothing is made in Unreal. Marvelous, and in our cloth simulation. Okay. And our environments, which we haven't gotten to yet, will be really heavy in cloth.
Okay, awesome.
Let's see.
We have another unhinged question.
I'm checking our questions out. Hello, Lord Luigi Briggs. Okay, question here. What software should I be knowing to do VFX and 3D Works? I don't really have like a short answer to that. It really depends what you're wanting to do. But that's kind of a broad question. So anyway, okay, this is what we have here. And we did talk about like maybe certain things to cover. Hopefully this kind of gives you an idea of, for those who are joining new, what we're doing. We're still pretty early. As far as what I've done this week for the regulars, we do finally have this guy who is our second character. And his clothing is also made in Marvelous. So I've been doing tests of this guy. So let's see.
So yeah, the unhinged ones are coming from my end. I'm so sorry.
Okay. I'm just looking at the chat.
If there are two characters that would interact with each other, would you bring them both into Marvelous Designer to sim the cloth? Oh. That's nice.
If there are two, yeah. So if there are two characters, it really depends. We did obviously have characters interact when they're talking. Most of the time, you don't really need to sim them together, unless they're like entangled together. But we didn't have any kind of animation like that. For the most part, they were all simmed separately. I don't know what our shots are exactly yet, but if they were like grappling and like fighting together or like rolling around together, we would do that. but for our last one, we didn't need to do that. Everything was done separately. Okay. So I don't know. Anything?
I was gonna say we can just jump in with the animation answer I have for you. Like, might as well
Okay.
just do that.
Yeah, we can jump into that. So, yeah.
So, I mean, you're still so off screen. We talked about some collision and clipping going through after you've done recording. Is that still happening for you?
Yes. So, if I can load that problem file.
Yeah. I was like, I also have it.
Okay. You can also share your screen too if you want.
Either way, I think it's also fun on your side too. Either one.
Okay. So off screen, I got an opportunity to talk to Megan, who again is an expert for those for the first time in Marvelous. You also have background in clothing too, like in real life, right?
Yes, I have 20, I don't know how many years, ongoing 21 plus years of sewing experience in real life. So,
Yeah, that's amazing. So
yeah.
I use Marvelous. I don't have any understanding of how to make clothes. I think if
Well,
I
you've
tried,
done it here. You can just make that in real life. It's totally possible.
well, that's the hard part.
Well, the hard
Like
part is the scale, right? If that's like a tiny little guy, it's like little Barbie clothes.
I would have a hard time if it was life size or tiny. You know what? Actually, these guys are life size.
Oh, well,
So
then it's easy.
yeah, they are made to be life size because Marvelous seems better than if they were actually really little.
Mhm.
So in our movie, they're like probably this big, like I don't know,
Like
the
a
size of my hand, maybe.
7 inches
Yeah,
or
but in CG, they're like 5 feet tall.
Mhm.
And that's just for the lighting and all that stuff to look better. And we don't have any humans in this world anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Look like they're little.
Yeah, they just look like they're little, but
They're
they
just little
are
guys.
life size. Yeah. So the one thing I did is I got an opportunity to ask Megan again, who knows, who works at Marvis and has answers to these questions. Is like I have been having some problems with my sim. So here's one that's been pre-recorded. Let me just set this to loop. Sometimes. And it has some clipping issues on this one.
Mhm.
So you can see where the stomach is poking out over here.
White Room Gaming, the software is Marvelous Designer.
Yeah, so that was this question here. Okay. So as you can see, we were having a couple issues here.
Yeah, so we can see that it's kind of colliding. He's going through the mesh of the cloth. The mesh of the avatar is going through the mesh of the cloth, which is not ideal while you are trying to get animation out of Marvelous Designer.
Yeah. So everything that's white in this character right now is not the cloth sim, right? And when you're looking at the these brown colors, that's actually the Marvelous cloth inside of Marvelous, and this is just an avatar that just has animation. So if you're seeing the white clipping, it's clipping through the body that's simming on top.
Mhm.
So any suggestions on how to fix this?
So we tested it earlier. So I'm just going to tell you the answer.
Okay.
For your simulation, so what is happening is that he's going too fast. So the answer I have on I have 3 screens. So if you see me doing this, that's why. If you change your scene time warp, I'm trying to remember what it is. I'm opening the file on my side. If you change your scene time warp to 2, open project.
Time warp.
I'm trying to move it because I believe it's under your quick menu. I'm trying to remember where it is.
Down here.
It's blurry for me just because I'm also viewing the chat.
I see it. So time warp. Let me pull
Make
up
your
a
time
pen.
warp 2 and then make your simulation quality, like just make it 5 because you don't need 5 and above doesn't make too much of a difference.
So for those
And
who
that's
can't
going to be in the property editor.
Okay. So for those who don't see my stuff, because this could be a question for someone else. I realize my writing is pretty bad. But there's a time warp value, and then there's a quick menu right here. This actually kind of helps me. Sometimes I look at my old streams, and I look at and I'm glad I circled my notes.
Mhm.
Okay, so I set my time warp to 2, which extends the animation then, right?
Yeah. We'll have to recache it. So I don't know if you want to do that off screen, but it does fix it for you. And then it is the simulation quality is to 5. Anything above 5 doesn't make too much of a difference. And then when you record it, he will not collide through the cloth anymore.
Okay.
And you can keep it at the particle distance you have now, which is
Now
a little bit higher than 5.
Okay. Now when I export it, because the times will actually double. So at 1, my frame range is from 0, looks like, to frame 0 to 30.
Mhm.
And if I double my time warp, that's my frame range to 60 then. So it's actually literally doubling my frames.
Yeah.
And then I would have to take that, and is there a way when I export it to change the frame rate back, or do I have to do that in a separate program?
You would have to do that outside. I don't remember if we have that feature.
Okay. All right, cool.
But that does solve the problem. Oftentimes they're going too fast, so you will have to just slow it down a little bit outside.
I did not know that feature at all. So maybe I can just hit record and just see what happens. It'll take a second.
Yeah, it might take a second. It might take a little bit longer. We'll see we'll see how the stream chugs if that does occur.
Okay. Okay, so that's one of the questions I had. And then part of the other issues were probably like double layer issues, things like that. I don't know if but this was a big one for me.
Mm-hmm. That was your biggest one.
Yeah, it was definitely the biggest one. And I did not know about the scene time warp. But we are live demo when we stream. So when we had to do this, we just make everyone sit through it.
Oh, hey, yeah, might as well. Let's go.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I do to my stream too. My stream has been warned. They know I go a little bit chaotic. It ends up being, here's exactly the rules, and then I end up saying, do as I say, not as I do. I'm gonna try to break this.
Okay, so this is pretty cool. I'm gonna try to pop it into Maya and see if I can change the time once I cache out the Alembic. But that would be great because I had no idea that you can actually do that. But you're right. I did have the most problems when the characters are moving too quick. Like literally, I can have a character, and this is stick figure. I just realized that I can't really draw stick figures. Okay. When you have a frame like this, and then that's frame 1, and then the second frame will be so far, and then the arms and the legs will be in completely different positions, changing so much that I can see why it has problems. Like all of a sudden the hands are like this on frame 2, and it has nothing in between. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah. The more frames you have in between, the better it is. Just because Marvelous Designer is trying to make it it works in real time in the way of associating real human movements, the concept of it, and human scale. So if you're moving faster than the average person could move, it sometimes makes it like for this is in another kind of layman term for students and for those of you who are unfamiliar with it. If you go too fast, you just go through the cloth because everything's mesh. It's not really cloth. Like you would expect in real life, because some people expect it to function exactly as it does, but it doesn't. They expect it to function as it would be in real life, like holding a shirt and throwing it against the wall. It's like, no, it's still mesh. It's not a solid.
But it's pretty close. It's like
It is.
it's actually pretty convincing. So this one just finished up,
There you go.
and if I press play, it does not have collision problems. It all looks better already. It actually seemed to solve most things. So here, I used to see it crumple in,
Mhm.
like, and then these are double layers, right? So for those who are not familiar with Marvelous, if you're when I'm clicking on this piece of cloth and I'm looking at the backside, it's dark because it's just a single side. So we're seeing the reverse normal. And this here are two pieces. So this is double layered. That's what I mean. And this actually usually had problems too. Like they would interpenetrate a lot more.
Now, it will probably still have those same problems. There is something with your animation. If we remove the cloth, like on the back of the legs, your feet are actually going inside of the body of your little guy here. Just because of the rigging,
Oh,
his
yes.
feet do pass into his body.
Yeah. So the rig is not good because it's just
It's
a
okay.
mix-em-o rig.
Yeah.
So, but that's not a problem with the cloth itself. That's just a problem with the animation itself. Okay, but this actually looks pretty good.
Yeah, you might end up seeing like a collision issue with the cloth as his foot is trying to basically penetrate the cloth into into the back of his body.
Yeah. I have a lot in one of the tests I did,
Mm-hmm.
and that's going to always create problems. But that problem is not a Marvelous problem, just bad rig problem. But to me, this looks pretty good though. Like the result is really nice. Let me try to export this. Let's call this fast. So I'm exporting this as an alembic, which is what we use inside of Unreal to render for the cloth sims. And this looks good. The size looks fine. And we'll bring it in here. Okay. It's still exporting. There we are. That was pretty fast. And I'll just bring in that alembic. And then this should have a range from 0 to 60. So I brought it into Maya, right? Just by importing the cache for those who are curious what the steps were. You just go to cache, Alembic cache, import Alembic, and then you just select the file. It's pretty simple. Then it will bring it in and I have it open in my outliner. If I select my Alembic here and I scrub through my time frame, you can see I have my frames. And if I click on the attribute editor over here and I click on the Alembic node, I get my start frame, my end frame. So that says 0, that's 60. And I also have speed. So I could probably double up my speed. And now it should be running much faster. So now it's 30 frame range, which is pretty cool. And I could see if I could bring which I'm not really sure where I saved it, the original Alembic.
It's always the hardest part. I never remember where I save anything.
Now I'm just realizing, where did I put all that stuff? I think I know. I wonder if you can see in the scene browser. what the name of the original file was. Okay, you can. So I found it. Give me 1 second. I don't want people to see my really messy directory.
Yeah. I just hide everything under, I hide everything that the stream sees for me under like Gnaw and like Konami codes.
Okay, so here's my body. Oh, that worked pretty well. I can do this thing, which is what I would do, something really obnoxious to check the collision. I'll just sign a new material and make it a terrible color.
Oh,
Like red.
I love it.
And then
Oh my goodness.
let's set this range to 30. And we'll have loop on and just minimize. It's playing slow.
That looks much better.
It does. It actually
Much
looks like
better.
it's clipping in, but I think
I
it's just
see a little bit.
I think it's just the camera, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
Okay, a little bit here, but this is
On the
way,
sleeve
yeah, this is still way better.
and the foot.
Now that could also be corrected in Marvelous too, right?
It could. So another thing you can do is you're currently rocking the 14 particle distance. You can bring it down to 10, and that would probably fix that hem issue. And the hem is basically the edge of the material. It would
Okay,
fix where he's colliding.
so I can bring that to 10.
Yeah. So when you end up having that clipping issue, so depending, sometimes it's the speed, but sometimes it's always going to be a balance between the speed at which they're moving, and then also the collision thickness and the density of the mesh or the particle distance.
Okay, the collision thickness, what that feature does is it emulates the thickness of the cloth, right? So
No, collision thickness is so what emulates the thickness of the cloth is actually the rendering thickness, which is the one below that. Collision thickness is, if you want to, is how we kind of explain it is its personal space bubble of the material. So it has is that a 7.5 on there?
no, it's 2.5.
Oh, good. Okay, that's the default. Collision thickness is basically on both sides of the material. It's 2.5 millimeters of additional like buffering space that protects the mesh from touching the other mesh. So it helps prevent collision issues.
Okay, so I could try that. There's actually a good question here from
Let's see.
NetBug. Does the time warp fix affect the realism in the simulation result? That's a really good question.
In truly, if you're just doing it at the 2, and especially at the speed of this animation, it made it more realistic in this case. It depends on the animation you're using, and it depends on the severity of the scene time warp. Going to 2 is not bad, but sometimes if you do it the other direction, it can make it worse.
For some reason, it's playing really slow in Maya.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to play it real time, and it's like really choppy. It's not I think it's just a Maya thing.
Yeah.
It's just not playing. So it's actually kind of hard to judge that.
It doesn't affect the cloth simulation as much, I will say. It makes it a little bit more realistic, but the more frames you add, let's just say the longer you extend the time warp, the less realistic it's going to look, in that the cloth will be very fast while the person's going to be very slow.
Okay.
So if, the ratio is like a 6-to-1, it's not going to be as accurate as 1-to-2.
Yeah, someone said play blast. You're right. I would have to play glasses to check the speed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But it seems pretty good to me. Right?
Mhm.
Like And I probably wouldn't do this for necessarily everything. I think it would just be like sometimes when I'm having problems.
Yeah,
Then
and there's other ways to work too. Again, it's like if it does affect the speed or affect how it looks, you increase the collision thickness for the items that are having the collision problems.
okay. But this is great. Like I had no idea that I could address it this way. To me, my computer is chugging.
There is one other answer that you can do. There's
Oops.
another solution that you can do.
Okay.
So I want to say it's not just me that figured it out. It was actually I was chatting with Brandon and Sean, our other 3D designers, mid call last time, and they were playing a fun game of Race to the Finish. And so we all have found options for you.
Oh, that's so
So
amazing.
they found fun. They're like, "Oh, let's play with this." So it's really fun to just give it to them too. Well, like it was literally while we were on the call, I'm like, "Hey guys, I'm gonna look at this, but I also want you guys to see this cool project."
This is so awesome.
You can change also the time step, and you can reduce the time step as well, and that is in your simulation properties.
Okay, so I
Oh,
can
paired Annika. Yep, I just went and said time step at the same time as you posted your question. You can do
time step right
either.
here.
Yeah.
So time step default value is 0. Okay, 33.
0.33333. I would do like I can try 0.2 on my end if we really want, and then you can try like a different one.
So should I do this with the scene time warp or no?
I would do one or the other for now because that was how our little internal racing game went.
Okay. I think that's pretty awesome to have like usually when I'm for those who don't know, I'm just sitting here in the dark crying. Because it's just Miguel and me. And I'm like, okay. There's not like very many people like I can ask these type of questions to. So I'm like happy. Okay, so I'm gonna jump to I lost the setting here to 0.2. Now what is time?
0.02 because that's still the time step is normally 0.033333.
Okay, so I'm changing this value to 0.02.
Yes, you can
And
try it
then
that way.
what is time step
It's
exactly?
it's pretty much it's very similar to time warp. So instead of changing your animation time, we're changing our simulation time. So the
Um,
simulation properties, which is where you right click in the 3D window and choose simulation properties, time step is going to be the speed at which our simulation calculates what is considered like gravity.
okay.
So I
Let me
don't know
write
the
this down.
actual number, so that's why I was saying one of us can try 0.0202 or like 0.015.
Whichever one. I can do 0.02 or 15.
Right. I can even do 0.015 if it doesn't cause a problem with my stream, my call with you.
Okay. Here's a good question. I'm
Mhm.
gonna start simming this. Hello, when would you change the time warp versus changing the time step setting?
It depends on the quality of that animation is my answer. So if your animation is like if you made it yourself and you don't have enough frames to stretch in between, I've seen some people just it'll jump. You wouldn't want to change that time warp. You would change the time step. So it's if then if the animation has a problem, affect the world. If the animation doesn't have a problem, you can affect the animation.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
I,
Like there's a whole bunch of ways to get to the same answer, and it just depends on like if you just have to kind of finagle it a little bit because we are kind of breaking the rules of what I tend to recommend to most people. So this information for those of you on our side. This is not for beginners. Please follow the beginning tutorials first, or you will make me cry.
yeah, this is like particular troubleshooting. Now, I didn't
Mhm.
have these answers and the last thing we did. So I didn't know that you could just time warp or just the time step change. If it were me, I'd probably try to just get everything working on default settings first. And
Mhm.
then I would only make these adjustments when I encounter problems, because every costume is different. Every animation is different.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes we do have animation that's going really fast, right? Like we had one where at the end of our last short, where she's like down here and she jumps like this far in one frame.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, you're asking a lot of the program to figure out how to get from here to like this really far distance. It's going to have problems. And that would, I probably would use, I think I would just go try to do scene time warp or something like that. Now I just
There's
ran this sim.
Don't make Rose. Oh, so Rosemary's here. We love Rosemary. She has actually been one of the. I just want to point her out. We love Rosemary. Rosemary's been a like super user for like the years, for like 10 years or something, helping out everyone who's using Marvelous Designer. She also has a sewing background, and she is one of the people I bragged to you about that will go on rants with me about historical costuming.
That's pretty awesome. Again, I don't have a background in historicaling, but the project we did before Voice in the Hollow had a lot of Victorian clothing, and I struggled so much because we didn't have a wardrobe designer. So I was trying to research and understand all these things, and I started really appreciating. There's so much that changes in like 5 years in designs, and you probably understand all of that.
Yeah,
Like,
we'll we'll just go on rants about it too, because fashion is weird, and Victorian fashion is also strange. And
it's like it changes so much. Plus, I've noticed I bought some pieces. Everyone was like had really tiny waists back then. So if I like get something that's 100 years old, and I'm like, everyone has like a tiny waist, but that was because of the corset or something, right?
actually, before I'm gonna see if Rosemary's gonna beat me to this. Actually, that's called survivor bias. So the items that survive are the things that are the least worn, and that are the things that are the least manipulated over
Ah,
time,
so
because
too
they're gonna be
little.
the smallest items
Yeah.
that fit someone super tiny, and they survive that long because as fashions changed at that time, fashion, like, I'm also currently recording, everybody, I'm recording the 0.1555 option, just so you guys know, while I'm going on this rant. So back then, you would actually just edit your fashion and your garments to fit the current style. So they would edit them, and that's why we tend not to see them. And the only things that truly survive are things that were sentimental, formal, and or too small. Because if it's too
Uh,
big, you can change it. You can use the material.
yes, when it's too small, what are you going to add to it?
Yes. And so
Um,
sometimes Rosemary beats me to these. So I'm really glad
that makes a lot of sense because we do have some pieces and they're in very good shape. But I'm like, who's going to fit this?
exactly.
They're extremely, but you know, some of some actors are very tiny too,
Yes.
so it works. But if you're like a modern person, it's like size XXX small. So, yeah. Let's
And
see.
there were people that were that size at that time. It's just the thing is that they wore the clothes to exhaustion, and so you couldn't use the material depending on how you used it. It's very
Okay.
similar to why we can't find. Oh, I made Marvelous Designer. I might have made it crash. We're gonna see. It's also similar to why we can't find a lot of antique candelabras. They were turned into lamps.
Oh, you know, what I found a lot of in
Mm.
terms of clothing, funeral clothing. So there were a lot of really nice black dresses, and they're beautiful. But I can see why that survived. Like, how often would that be worn? Um,
Exactly.
and I noticed during there, you know, when I look at pictures, the white tea dresses, is that what they call them? Those were harder to find. And I guess
Mhm.
white was like, who would really wear black? Like, I guess today you wear a lot of black, but did people really wear a lot of black back then, like solid black, unless it was a funeral?
Yeah, the funeral there were specifically mourning clothes. It depends on the period, but yeah, most of the time black was mourning clothes, and you would only wear black for a specific period of time.
Yeah. Here's a couple comments. Plus, like today, the popular look is very driven by a given ideal, not by reality. Yeah. And we have comment. Hello from Greece, new to 3D, been using 3D Studio Max and just started a Maya online course. Oh, cool. Welcome to the channel. Let's back up here. I've just been letting this play and I haven't looked, but this looks.
I just finished recording, actually.
Okay. Did you want to show yours?
Yeah, well, let's see yours first. Let's see yours. Have you returned your time warp or your time step to 0.033333?
No. Well, what I did is I changed my time seam warp back to 1 and let's see. My simulation property, the time step is 0.02. So I didn't return it back. Am I supposed to change it back once it's recorded?
It will affect the speed of your playback. So if you bring it back, you're not simulating anymore. It's just going to be showing us what's recorded at the speed that would be, I guess. For me, I recorded at 24 FPS. It would be the speed that you would want it at. So I would play it back at the 0.0333.
Okay,
and I can show you a bigger difference on my end, but we'll play yours first.
This looks pretty good to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yours is.
But it looks actually great. I don't see.
It's a little bit on the hem there.
You mean down here?
Yeah, he's clipping a little bit.
Is it? I think the shape of the clothing is
the shape.
Yeah, the shape of the clothing is just jagged. So, what it is, it's like it's like a CG artist type of thing.
Oh,
like,
I see.
I didn't want the cloth to be very clean, completely straight like this, because it looks really CG, right? So my idea, and especially because the cloth is thin. So for me, the cloth being thin, like one piece of geometry gives away that it's a CG piece. But if I embrace the fact that it's thin and I say, look, it's very thin cloth that's shredded at the end where we have a lot of fibers, it tends to look better. Yeah. And then the thing that helps me more is if I actually give it shape and marvelous. So for some people, they might go, well, I'm going to paint that in the texture and I'm just going to have a flat piece straight like this. This is the pattern, right? I don't think it looks as good. I think it looks better, or at least in the result, if I take the shape and I make it look pre-torn. And then when I take it to texturing, I tear that more. It looks a lot nicer. It also sims more correctly. So then I don't have like a big flat piece. Now I actually have little flaps and stuff like that. So that's why the shape is weird, just to explain for anyone wondering. But it actually looks really good. I don't see the issues here. This result looks better than the seam time warp.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that. I also agree with you on the cutting. I do recommend people do that to an extent.
Yeah. And you can see that here. That's why this piece looks like that. But this actually looks this looks great. Some of the button kind of went. I don't think I let it rest first. I started the sim where the button was weird. And it just stayed this way. But that's fine.
Yeah, I can show you mine because mine doesn't do that when it's just how you would accidentally simmed it. And like what Rosemary said, if you change the time warp and I guess this time step as well, play back at the inverse to have the movement look more realistic. You can do that. I will actually show you how far you don't want the time warp to go. I think Annika asked earlier. At one point, does it kind of become? Someone asked at some point, at what point does it become unrealistic? This is where it becomes unrealistic. My time warp was recorded at 0.01555, so it was half the speed, whereas yours was at 0.02. And he's currently playing back at the correct speed now. He looks like he is in slow motion.
Oh yeah, it looks like he's underwater or something like that. Or
so this is at point. Actually, this is at the 0.0155. So if you want underwater, this is one of the couple of ways to get an underwater effect.
Let me write that down.
going to return this to 0.033. So it'll be sped up a little bit. It still doesn't look as good as the 0.02222222. He's
So
still
that
a
was
little slower than ideal.
0.015.
Yeah, so that was half, like an
Half.
approximate half of like the 0.03. So he's
This
still
is pretty
kind of,
cool.
yeah. So it's fun to play in this. Again, this is where you play in it after you have a better understanding of how Marvelous Designer works. If I catch you guys in my Discord crying about this, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to copy pasta the tutorials again.
Do you do a lot of simulations in your streams? Usually, are you?
Yeah.
So you're getting a lot of anim. Well, you are, right? Like you want
Uh,
to see the character walk and.
not animation. I have to pre-cache that out depending on what I do. Oftentimes we get a lot of people. Oftentimes I don't plan ahead of time, and I'll just make whatever historical garment I'm currently researching at the time, or what people are talking about in the Discord channel itself.
Right.
Sometimes I will do animation, but oftentimes I will go as heavy as to break the simulation sometimes based on the level of density of the cloth I will work in.
This is awesome. For just for those again who are kind of new, like when I did, when we did our project, it's just Miguel and me, and we did have some awesome artists helping us out, jumping in with certain very specific tasks. But most of the man hours are handled by Miguel and I, because that's what indie projects are like. And so I ended up simming hundreds of shots in Marvelous. So for me, like having kind of these answers is a big deal, because it's just hundreds of simulations. I mean, I don't know what our shot count was. I don't know if Miguel knows how many shots we had.
I mean, I've seen
It's
the
fun.
videos. I've seen it. It's beautiful, but let me know later what that number is.
Well, it's 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And there's not, though, I think there's a character in every shot. If there's a character in every shot, there's a simulation in every shot. So, yeah. And, so this is a huge deal, being able to just tweak these things. And I know I've tried to look these things up on my own, but I didn't really understand the result that you could get and what you would do. So I messed with the time step, and since I didn't know what it was, I screwed it up. But now I understand what it is, which is great. So this is awesome.
Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you for joining and actually looking at these files. This here, again, is for our production, is a bigger challenge because these guys have like way more clothing. If I were to pull up, I could pull up.
Here, you can take me off of the host here. I'm looking at your button to see if I can fix the collision that's happening.
Well, for me, what I would have done.
Yeah, your button's fine. I mean, it's actually quite thick and it's going through your cloth.
Yeah. So for those who want to know how I would fix it, I just wouldn't start it like this. If you just pull it out and just let it chill out, and then if I sim it, it will be fine. That's it. Just don't start with a bad pose. So when I get my character into any pose, before I press record, I kind of look at it, make sure it's not doing anything really weird. So, if I start where this cloth is colliding with that knee, I'm asking for a lot of problems. Like, just don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Miguel,
Miguel, you're upside down. I really like your rendition of the Spider-Man.
Okay.
I think it's really cool.
Anyway. Now, if I press record, I don't have to record again, but you just have to believe me that it will work out fine.
I mean, you guys saw mine of the same project where the button wasn't affected or touched, but the button didn't have that collision problem. So actually, I do have another answer for you. So the problem I had, I don't know if you care. If you look at your actual button, the button that's functioning correctly, It's very thick because you have your button going through a buttonhole.
Yes.
If you look actually on the right side, on the inside of the coat, I don't know if you care, but you can see it. It's doing that. You can fix it easily if you right-click your button and you make your layer
Right click this button like
in the
this.
3D window.
Okay.
And you choose a set number of sewing layers, and if you make it 2, it'll
Do
it
I
won't go through.
do I click on the properties here?
Oh no, you actually click on the object in the scene.
Click on this here.
And you right click that thing and it'll have a pop-up
Right
that
click this
says
thing here.
set number of sewing layers. Make it 2. And you select OK. And now the button won't as easily clip through that fabric.
Let me write this down. I actually this is all new to me for everyone. So when Megan's telling me these things, I'm actually just writing it down so that I have all this answer.
You can always message me later.
I will probably do that. I don't want to bother you though, but
It's my job.
I would be happy. Set number of sewing layers. I think this is pretty neat too, because I would think that this can demystify a lot of things for a lot of people. Because I think I don't know, I don't know how many streams I've seen out there, or not just streams, or even YouTube tutorials or anything talking specifically with so much animation involved in Marvelous. So for me, like, I'm excited to get this, and then hopefully, this is helpful for anyone else trying to do their simulation.
Yeah.
Maybe someone else is doing a short film, or just maybe a demo reel or a personal project. Here's a comment here.
Let's see.
This demonstration was very helpful. And then, oh, that's cool. There's one here from Rosemary. If you change the time warp and I guess the time step as well, play back at the inverse to have the movement then look realistic. Okay. All right, that's awesome. Here, what I wanted to show, I don't know what file version this is. Give me 1 second. I'm asking my computer to do quite a bit right now.
You're asking it quite a lot, and it's still doing it. So
Yes. Well, one of the things we did when we embarked on this was to make sure our graphics card was pretty good, because that makes a huge difference, particularly in Unreal. So let me give it a moment. You can see it's trying to do something in this green bar. So what I have open right now is Substance Painter. And what I'm trying to show is what our cloth looked like in the previous short film. All right, it's done. So this character, they didn't have as much clothing. But again, this was made in Marvelous, and again, we simmed all of this. So for this one, again, this guy is a lot heavier. He's mostly all clothing, whereas in here, in our previous character, you can see there's a lot of skin, not too much clothing. Question here. I didn't know you used Painter for voice and hall. Did you use Mari at all? I did not use Mari at all. I used 100% Substance Painter. For this one, I did do a little bit of Mari for the current project, just for certain things. And then Miguel decided he didn't want to stay upside down. So he'll
That's
just
how
join
it
us.
goes.
He'll just join us in the chat. Okay. I'm going to close this because my computer is going to chug. Was there something else? Did I cut you off?
Oh no, you're good.
Okay. So we talked about the time warp, the time step, and the button layers, which I think are really, really helpful. So
I guess the only thing I would say is just keep an eye for those of you who are new to animation. Keep an eye on your animation. The basics are what are going to get you the longer you actually work and the more experience you have, because sometimes you have to have a checklist. So an example of that is if you are we it happens to us all the time. Um, Keep an eye on if your animation is colliding with itself in your own rig, and if that might be causing you to have the collision issues or simulation issues in your animation. Um, as well as always check your normals. I definitely I was helping out another user in our Discord yesterday, and it was like really was just the flip normals.
oh, so the normals were backwards in Marvelous?
Yeah, he had flipped his normals, but it was like on a double-sided tab. Actually the video for the solution is in our Discord channel. And so when you're working in thick textured surface, you don't see your the wrong side normal direction. And so sometimes it'll cause you frustration until you realize, I just have to do it this way. Um, and I do that. It happens to me all the time too on the stream. People will see it. People see it, and I just cause a lot of chaos. And layers also, I guess. Make
I'm,
sure to remove all layers at the end of your settling of your project.
yes, I always remove the layers. I actually don't use the layers even that much. I used to use it in, years ago, but I find like I don't really need it most of the time. It seems to be okay.
And that's
Um,
great.
yeah, I think that's great. Now, just to kind of emphasize some of the point that she's saying. So this is a Mixmo rig. So this is not rigged by a rigger. What I do a lot is I'll basically start the clothing design all in Marvelous, right? And normally the characters are not in this kind of pose. They're in a T pose. So I'll just kind of show, or actually a pose. In particular, for us, it's for our pipeline. It's better for Unreal if we are in T pose.
Mhm.
But I don't like to design clothing in T pose because a lot of people don't stand like that, right? And I think the clothing looks funny. So I tend to do all my stuff in A pose, and then we'll repose it to T pose. But the clothing is literally made and designed in Marvelous just like that. It's not done in any other software. Um, and then what we do is we test out the clothing to see how it sims, and it's not going to be a rigged character at that point. So we're just getting auto rig from Mixamo. And you can see here, Mixamo rigs have problems. So like here, aside from the fact that it bends really strange, like the leg is like you can see we're also having a lot of collision. So if I take this and I test this in Marvelous, I'm just gonna have a lot of problems. That because I have the legs interpenetrating. So what it's gonna do is make the clothing crash into each other, and it's gonna respond very poorly in these areas. So I ended up not using this
Hmm.
as a test because it's not a good candidate for testing.
Yeah, there are ways around it. You can sculpt it out in your animation. We have a couple of tutorials on that. I
Oh, you
think
do?
one or two tutorials on that for the animation to accommodate for that. But you have to
Uh,
affect the animation. You
how
have
do
to
you guys?
affect the sculpt. It's adjusting the blood shapes.
Oh.
Because you would carve away at the leg where he's colliding with himself.
So what I probably would have done is I would have taken this, cash this out in Alembic. Let's say I'm stuck with this. Let's say it's a real rig, and this is
Mhm.
what happened. We have two choices. One, we could send it to an animator to fix it, right? Because we had some animators help us out. Or if it's important for it to actually hit this pose, it would be sculpted out on the animation also. So yeah, but I wouldn't take this into, I would never take this into Marvelous for a final thing, because it just would not work very well.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can see there's all kinds of weird problems. Anyway, that is, yeah. So folks, don't bring in your animation messed up like this. You actually have to correct it, whatever way that you need to correct it.
Now, if you want it to, if you want your animation, if you're just texture baking, and it's for the character, that's a completely different story, and you just make it on the character stagnant without moving. You can get away with it that way, and then apply that animation to it afterwards. You're still going to have that collision problem later, but you would have your project done. It just wouldn't be pretty. But it is an option.
Let's see. Let's check the comments. On our end. Oh no, I'm late to the stream.
No.
You can check out the earlier stuff. You can scrub back in the time. Let's see here. Okay, so I think this is going to fix a lot of things for me. I don't know if you, I mean,
Okay.
I have you here. You can show me all kinds of stuff.
I was going to say, I've actually just now finished making the fitting suit for your other little guy here. Have you had a chance to play with fitting suit yet?
No. I think I messed with it one time and got, I don't know, and gave up on it.
All right. Well, I've got your little guy here. Those of you who are familiar with it, I'm doing fitting suit again. The fitting suit's a little hard on him, but this is for the auto fitting tools, so that you can create fitting suit when you import. You can actually auto create a fitting suit now in the most recent version of Marvelous Designer, so it'll automatically create for them this little wetsuit looking thing here. The little suit right now, the neck is kind of messed up, so I might try to fix that later. But I've got a little fitting suit for him that I've made, and I had to make this one manually. The fitting suits work for an avatar that has one neck, 2 arms, and 2 legs. The more the neck is very short, the more likely it can be warped. And in fact, you can see a little bit of of an interesting thing happening with this avatar. His shoulders are very high, so you can actually see that the fitting suit isn't super tight to his shoulder here. It looks like he's just like tensing up the whole time.
Yes, he has a very, very short neck.
Yeah. So just keep an eye on that with your avatar. If that's what's happening with your fitting suit, it's how your avatar is standing. But I've created one here.
How did you make the fitting suit?
I'll show you how. I guess I'm going to have to redo it anyway. So I just clicked create fitting suit. And because I have a create fitting suit and I actually have one in the scene, I can actually adjust to the existing one. I'm going to reset it though. So I can see the original fitting suit here, but it is gone. So I have my little pop-up window. Symmetry's on, so everything's going to be done on the left screen, not left worn. Just a heads up on that. So when I'm doing this, I do like the upper neck, and you're just basically drawing loops here. I've got that upper neck, and I have a lower neck, and we're going to see if I can make this neck better than I did earlier today. No, but based on his head, it's a little funny. I can go back and just click the one that caused me a bit of a problem, and I can try to redo it. And I'm just creating these rings. So these are basically like the reference points for morphing. So when we say fitting, it's not really fitting like you would, like a tailor will fit their garment onto your own body. It's more like a morphing reference. His waist. So actually, I'm going to ask you, where is his waist on here? I assume it would be here.
Yes.
Okay.
Originally, he didn't really have a waist, but then his pants kept falling down. So
you can always pin them to him. I'll show you how to do that.
For us, though, if it's just because I'm just one person, if I just go, oh, put a waist, I don't have to worry about it. It's better than pinning hundreds of shots.
Absolutely, it is.
Yeah.
Look, I'm gonna. Oh, I don't have joints on him. Okay. I'm assuming his elbow is actually here.
Yeah, it's around there.
So he's a little cartoon guy. He's just a little guy.
He's very soft. The inspiration behind him is like well, part of the inspiration is like Beaker from the Muppets.
Oh, okay.
So
Cute.
and you look at the Muppets, they're kind of really soft and don't really have strong elbows or knees. Now, when you're drawing these circles, do you just clicking and then it's just generating a circle?
Yeah, so I'm left clicking. This is it's very similar to our measurement tools. It hides here. But we have little measuring tools too to actually measure if you really want to do math for your avatar. I will note that because of how he is standing and how you have made him, and also how this is fitting on his the crotch here, I'm actually shaping this how I would not advise other people to do. I'm trying to shape these legs really high just so I can get a better fit for his pant rise. This is the pant rise here for the crotch of his pant. I'm only doing it because this is falling down. And so again, I'm just left clicking once, 1, 2, and then a third time to finish it. And I'm trying to be as parallel to the ground as I can, or really as parallel to where these joints technically would be. Now he doesn't have this avatar that you lent me does not have joints. He's just an OBJ. But you can see these little shadows of a pattern appearing. And so I can reference that and see how it's going to fit on him. And I just hit apply once I'm happy with how it looks. If I had any other issues, I'd go up to wrist, and then I'd make sure to reapply the wrist. Like 1, 2, 3, and I can overwrite that line. So once I apply it.
Oh, that's cool. It looks like a piece of cloth stuck to the body.
It's basically like that. That's how we actually are treating it, because it's technically a default, a fabric here in our scene. But you can see how the rise is affecting him here.
He has
so
a lot of
sometimes
space between the legs.
He does. And so unfortunately, just this is a mitigation tool that's really useful, but it's never going to truly be an accurate, like, I'm gonna just change the fit perfectly.
But
So I'm
it
just gonna
looks
save
pretty
this.
good though.
Yeah. I'm gonna save this. You can already see I have one over here. I also might, there it goes. Like, did I break it? I'm just rewriting the existing one. And this saves it as an avatar file. So actually, if I hit cancel, I now am actually using that avatar file. It's really mad at me because I'm doing multiple things at once. I've saved it once. Thank you. So you can see our guy. I can also just bring him in. Open. There he is. You can see with your guy here, just the neck, turtleneck portion just doesn't like it. But that's okay, because it can still work. Let's see. So all of the basic garments have fitting suits. So let's find something for him. Let's give him a little sweater. We'll just do a sweater, I think, for now. So this garment has a fitting suit. So if you're going to use the fitting suit tool, you do need to make sure that the garment has a fitting suit and your avatar has a fitting suit before you do it, because otherwise you can't. It has nothing to reference. So there's 2 things with the fitting suit tool that you can use. So now basically it has 2 targets that it can reference to either just retarget and drape, or you can also resize it. So I can just put the sweater on him without changing the size with retarget drape. Look at him in his big sweater.
Oh, that looks really good.
So cute. Let me hide his little. Hide the fitting suit. Look at him.
It did a really great job. I mean, it looked like it was like practically like it's like magical. It was like instant. It just popped on.
Now it is easy just because the sweater is at 20 particle distance, but look, he's so cute. And then you can just play around with it. This works for most things. Obviously, the if it's not perfect, or if it's a very odd shape, you might have a bit of a problem or two. I wonder. I don't think pants would work well. Pants would have to be refit. But I'm gonna add this to the workspace again. I just deleted it because I was thinking about adding pants. The second one you can do is the auto fitting. So this is 20 particle distance, so it'll be pretty quick. Maintain pattern curvature. I always keep it at 100%. I don't want it to warp too much because it's going to take its fitting suit and then reference his fitting suit and then change its size. And it'll also target redrape. So it's about to do 2 actions. Now, I did try to make a fitting suit for your other guy, but he has a lot of cloth on him already.
Yeah.
And it does make it very difficult to make a fitting suit for him.
His clothing is really heavy.
Yeah.
Also, it's like very, very dense. So I can see that.
There's his little guy, but I do need to fix some stuff. So this is why I say the fitting suit is a great tool to get you started, but it doesn't actually get you. It's not perfect.
Yeah, but that's pretty good, though. Just making a little bit of adjustments doesn't seem like a big deal at all.
Yeah. Trace, which is the eye tool. I'm just going to retrace this guy. Adjust those pockets.
What was that command?
I hit the eye hotkey, which is the trace tool. It's
Is there
right here.
Is that one of the newer? That's one newer tool, right?
It's been here for a very long time. Just most people don't use it because you can do a lot of the things that trace tool does with the edit pattern tool. But the thing that the trace tool does do is you can select all lines. I'm holding shift to select everything. I can select all of these lines and I can right click and trace this pattern. Now I can do that with the edit pattern tool as well, but what I can't do with the edit pattern tool is I can't select multiple lines and then also get the trace pattern. It's not actually meant for it. The edit pattern tool just kind of squeaks by. It has some features that I didn't expect like that it might not have to have, it shouldn't have. But it's not a problem.
Because the way I've done that was like normally I would have thought that you have to have a closed pattern, and then I would just clone like out of the shape, like clone pattern based on the internal edges. So I didn't know that you can use the trace one. So I learned something new.
That's the one thing that trace can do that the other ones can't.
I'm gonna write that down. Mess with trace.
We also cover this in our other basic tutorials for those of you who are new. How to make clothing that works with a fitting suit. You gotta simulate your cloth on an avatar with a fitting suit, and then you save it as a file, and then it'll have a fitting suit. So the rule. So I'm not going to say their name. How can I make clothing that works with a fitting suit? Do I have to make a fitting suit first and then make cloth on top? It depends. To utilize the concept of fitting suits, your garment must obtain a fitting suit, no matter how you want to give it a fitting suit. You can make it first on an avatar and then make the fitting suit for the avatar second. But you cannot easily make a fitting suit. Like the one thing that can't happen that people have tried to do that gets very frustrating for them is with the fitting suit. With the fitting suit, if you want to have it fit your avatar, you must have the avatar that it fits. That's the thing. If you buy it off the internet or buy it off from somebody else and they made it for, let's just say, this guy, and they're not going to give you that avatar, you got to figure out what you're going to do. You can do it the old-fashioned way, which is rescaling, which I cover in other tutorials, which is adjustments by manually, learning the basics of Marvelous Designer. The fitting suit helps, you kind of skip, but also this hood is very small. But you got to have, the thing is you have to have the garment that fits the avatar and then the avatar that it was made on. Otherwise, your fitting suit's not going to be correct. And what I mean by that is Now that I've changed this garment size and simulated it on him, where's the garment? Show garment fitting suit. This is now this shirt's fitting suit. So if you have something and you have something approximate that sort of fits, you can give it a fitting suit. The next step would be to save this garment as a file. So go file, save as.
So the garment inherits the fitting suit from the avatar?
Yes.
Okay. So that's how you would make it on a piece of garment. Now, when you say that as a garment, it will, when you bring it in, it already has that fitting suit.
Yeah. So now that the red indicates the fitting suit for the garment. Just keep that in mind. As soon as you simulate something on an avatar or even in the scene, even if it's a mess, and if you save it, that becomes the fitting suit of the garment. So if I do this, let me make this a problem.
It looks problematic.
Let me make this a problem. This is my vision of beauty. If I save this, this is now what the garment will expect as correct. So you have to make sure that you simulate it correctly on an avatar with a fitting suit, and then you just save the file. You can
So
save
now,
it as a garment or as a project.
if you try to refit that, does it try to leave the sleeve on the side on the next thing?
Oh, it absolutely is about to do that, and we will do that next.
Okay, let's see it. Here's Miguel's comment I didn't see. Thanks, Megan. We're fortunate to have you. Fortunate to get you on here. Yes.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for joining. So this is our first time doing a dual stream, and it seems to be going pretty well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So this kid, he has a fitting suit. Always make sure, you can always double check by going to show avatar fitting suit. Kid's got one. The cloth has one. Now this is the reference. So this is the reference body that it's going to reference to place on the avatar. So in this case, I will do auto fitting. This can cause a cascade, so also just keep in mind. I haven't fixed this pattern at all. So it's going to also auto fit and auto scale. So we're having a copy of a copy. Now you can see it's been simulated on the child.
It's really tiny.
It's tiny, but it's also been changed in scale. So it's referenced the fit suit on our previous little guy. I don't even know his name. What was his name? What is the font?
Mayo.
Mayo. On Mayo. And so it's considered that as the new rule. So it's gone and scaled it to this kid based on that rule and those reference rings that we basically made. Another example for this, for those of you with sewing on the mind, it's basically a grading rule, but it is also applying the concept of a morph target.
Okay.
So when we say fitting, consider more like a warp or a morph. Unless so, it's truly going to fit it to how you are like hoping it would fit. It's more like a resize. Because this isn't even grading either. And grading is like a mathematical rule that you apply to like the growth of one shape. But this is for a custom, like the custom rings on the avatars that we made. But yeah, so if it, oh, go ahead.
No, I mean, it looks like what I thought it would look like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some people will have in the Discord, some people are like, why isn't it working? It's not fitting right. I'm like, yes, because you're trying to fit a dog and you've made it's from a human. It's not fitting right because it's doing its best it can, but it's also not fitting. It's not doing a tailoring job of fitting.
I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, like you just got to work with the tool.
Yeah.
Is that
his arms through the hood? Through the hoodie. Yeah, because he has no, like, he doesn't have a proper head, and then the neck thing was kind of messed up. The hood got really shrunken.
It's really tiny.
Yeah. And that fits Mayo. Like, this was the hood that Mayo was given. Let me delete him. I stepped super far back in time. Add to workspace. I right click add to workspace. I'll simulate just to see. It's angry. We'll give it a second. There we go. Yeah, look at his little hood. Tiny. This is the tiniest little hood because his neck's really tiny.
Yeah.
Oh.
Now, do you have special techniques for rescaling, or you just do that? You just reshape it and sim it?
It depends. There's different ways to rescale it. So if I can make it fit his head if I wanted. So if I wanted this to fit his head, I also have to remember his head is huge. So I need to look at this here. So I'm using the Z hotkey, and I need to make it fit. If I want to make this functional, I need to pull this and flip and move it over his head. Yes, I know it's very small. I'm using the C hotkey, which is the edit curvature tool. V for Victor. I have to fix the silhouette of the hood. And the hood has a pretty generic shape. It's kind of going to be kind of like this. It definitely needs more for his head. That's quite blocky.
He has a huge head. All these characters have giant heads.
This is something that we also needed, that we had to do for Pixel for the not Gnomon, but it was for Seagraph. Pixel also had a huge head. Now, this is going to cause a bit of a problem. So I'm going to take the 2, right click, invert selection, control K to freeze all of that. And then reset 2D arrangement. It was like both. I'm doing this. I'm isolating these items just because it's going to cause me a problem if I don't.
Yeah.
Oops. Give him a little hoodie.
Let's see some of the questions. I think you answered some of these already, like just by showing. I mean, use this drape or auto fit clothes. Do they stay there when you reset the 3D scene?
When where was that question? If you use this to drape or auto fit clothing, do they stay there? Do you mean? I'll need a second. I'll need a quantifying response to that. Do you mean when I reset my arrangement, or when I reset the scene? Because if there's animation that's being recorded, I need to bring it back to the first frame of that animation.
I assume what it means is like, well, I'm not actually sure what the question means. Like, I assume it means like if you start a new scene and you bring it in, like where does it show up in space? Does it show up in space where you've saved it?
Yes, it will show up in space where you saved it. If you've saved it, I guess, as a project, it'll basically show up where it was, so long as it's not in a very odd place. But if you saved it as a garment, it'll most likely come in as close as it can to the center coordinate here.
We have a follow-up. I think the arrangement is what I mean.
Oh, okay. So 3D, when you reset. So when you're resetting the 3D arrangement, you are resetting exactly where it was before you simulated. Now, if you've saved it and you've brought it in, that is the new reset 3D arrangement information. You can also reset to 2D arrangement, so it's going to reference the 2D arrangement location. If you're resetting 3D, it'll remember what it was imported as, or whatever your history was. Whatever the first history import, that's what it's going to have. So if I save this and bring it in, this is going to be the 3D reset. The 2D reset's going to be different. This hood does not fit him well.
Well, he's got so the top of his head, he's gonna have hair in his head, so that's all gonna be like actual hair. But right now, it's just like a weird pointy.
He's got a little Jimmy Neutron going on.
Yeah, it's like a weird looking mesh.
I can do this.
So let's see some other questions. I think you kind of answered this. How can I make clothing that works with a fitting suit? Do I have to make a fitting suit first and then make cloth on top?
Yeah, that was the one I answered.
Yeah.
My glasses hurt my head with this headset. Let's see the Other one. How
Oscar.
can we fix?
Okay, this one.
Fix.
How can we fix character should be in a pose appearing when creating an avatar for a character imported from UE Blender in a pose? What should we check?
So it really depends. This avatar was shown as he's not in an A pose, and it's mainly because his head is huge. So it really depends on if you are going to be able to use them based on your style and your design. I can't make an auto fit, an auto created fitting suit for Mayo here, specifically because his head is huge and his neck is tiny. Another option is check the scale of your import. Are you importing it at the size of a Polly Pocket, or are you importing it at the size of a 2-story house? You will also get that error if he's being imported at the size of a 2-story house.
Polly Pocket is, for those who don't know, those are like
like it's little tiny. It's like this tiny. It's like a tiny little plastic toy made with like little silicone rubber things. Or I should say a Barbie.
I can maximize my screen for 1 second.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Just so everyone can see this Polly Pocket.
It's so tiny. A lot of people do though. They will. I've had to support a lot of support tickets of, why isn't this working? It's broken. And I'm like, yes, your avatar is the size of 10 centimeters.
That's always kind of.
Please make it a large size.
That's the first thing I always say is how do I get out maximize? You want to maximize your screen back? Sorry.
Oh, sure. I don't know how to do that. I'm not the host. I think only the host can do it. You can just drag and drop it. Just drag my screen if you really want.
Trying. There. Okay. Got it.
I'm still trying to give this guy a hood.
Actually, the whole Polly Pocket is a really good thing. I think I'm going to steal that. That happens a lot with like Gnomon students because they might start their characters out in, say, something like ZBrush, and they're not thinking about the size, and they bring it into Marvelous, and it literally is Polly Pocket size, and then all the clothing falls right through it. So, yeah.
Yeah, that is the problem. We do actually have I have a little playlist of 2 troubleshooting tutorials specifically for 2 large avatar and 2 small avatar. Let me see if I can grab it. That will show like how to troubleshoot it. So for those of you who are new to Marvelous Designer is one of the few softwares that is like human scale and not relative scale. There's an unspoken checklist. I've tried to make this checklist spoken and written in the Discord channel. I need to figure out how to make like a click-through one and then convince the web team to let me do this. Sorry, Rosemary says there's an unspoken checklist that Megan goes through when solving problems. Size of imports is one of the primary issues. Yes, that is a very big one.
That's huge. If you bring in too small or too large, you're going to have problems.
Yeah. Mainly just because Marvelous Designer is cloth and fabric that is technically woven by human hands, and fabric is at human scale. So Marvelous Designer must work at the scale of which humans interact with the world, human scale. I have like a little bit of a short essay in those 2 videos, which I have to find playlists.
Now, for back in the old days, when I would be working at a company, we didn't use life size in Maya, and that was like, this was like 10 years ago. So CG has changed a lot. Nowadays, I work everything in life size, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like if anyone's gonna light something in Unreal, and again, remember our short is being rendered at Unreal, you're best off working life size. Your lights are going to be really funky. A lot of things are going to be really funky if you're too small. And nowadays, even if I was working in Maya and rendering with, say, something like V-Ray, I just usually get better results. Everything's easier if you're life size. So for us, working life size is just really seamless. because it's not just Marvelous. It's now if I work in V-Ray, it's life size. So I work in Unreal Engine, it's life size. It just everything works better. So it's makes the most sense for us. Here's a question here. Hello, will the live be saved? Yes. So our streams are saved on the Gnomon side. You can go to the Gnomon YouTube page, and there's usually a playlist, so you should be able to access it again.
I think ours also end up getting saved. I'll have to make a new playlist that are like a guesting style, but I think ours might also be saved on the YouTube side. But they don't get saved on the Twitch end. We do let a Twitch expire. I don't know if you guys do that as well.
I think so too. So just check out the Gnomon YouTube page. Or you're getting it to work with his really weird head.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know if I like the wrinkles or not. I'm like, we definitely don't have to do this. We can actually talk about your other project, but like your actual project. But I'm just trying to give him like a little, like, I almost really want this hood to be. I really just want to emphasize the wrinkle on the center back of his head. Give him this little hoodie.
Well, yeah. I have been showing, Miguel and I have been showing our progress. So we have been showing some of the stuff that we've been working out in Marvelous. So there's like, and then right now on the stage on our project, what I'm working on is texturing that Mayo character. And then so I don't know if there's like more for me to show on my end on the, just because they've already seen it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but today this was super helpful, just to kind of troubleshoot these very specific things to get nicer simulation.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we could help. We can also see if we have any more troubleshooting if you'd like. We have a little more time. That's the only reason I say
it. Let's see if I'm trying to think, because I do have you right now, and I'm like,
do you have any other questions? Does the chat have any other questions?
Yeah, does the chat have questions?
Like, while I adjust this hoodie, I'm just going to give you this hoodie project later. I don't know if you want a hoodie for him, but you know, he's going to have one now.
Well, it's an option.
Yeah, little outfit, like his little casual outfit.
Let me pull up.
So I will say, yeah, while you're looking, I'm going to point out the fitting suit did reference his body, but also it's pretty small and hiked up on his arms here. So I'm just going to lengthen this sleeve. I'm holding shift to keep it straight.
Now, I did have kind of a question.
Yeah.
So normally the way I've been working, I have Mayo on my screen.
Yeah.
And so I can maximize. Oh, no.
I mean, you're good. I'm just messing with his sleeve.
Here. And basically, everything you showed me is probably going to change so many things now. Because the way I've been working before was if you look at, and I click on these patterns, I've just been bringing up the particle distance to whatever value that it seems to sim well at. So sometimes when I put something at like, say 5, which is the lowest you want to go in the particle distance. When you're looking at the stream, these numbers probably look messed up. So this is 12.
Okay, cool. Because I can't. Oh wait, I think there's a full screen button.
Yeah, but I can see it on my end that it doesn't look very sharp. So I have not been able to get things to sim at 5 without it colliding or having certain issues. But I think the things that you just showed me with the time warp and the time stepping could probably really fix that.
Yeah. Layers too, but I do want to call out, like, again, it's like a list of things you can do to troubleshoot based on your exact project. The layers are based on the direction of your normals. So if your normals are facing away from each other, your layers are going to start having a problem.
Most of my normals are fine. This one is fine.
Yeah,
here.
more so I'm having a callback to when I created an inflatable T-Rex, and I tried to use layers around in a circle
An
to make his
inflatable
little bow
T-Rex.
tie, and it just kept having a problem for like a good 20 minutes. And then I was like, oh, there's layers. I forgot about that.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind here. Now, what I wanted to do here, I actually do have a question.
Yeah.
So this is like his pants crotch, right? And the way I'm trying to show these type of internal lines is I put a fold angle on it. Now, what I really wanted originally, I'm just going to reset this so it doesn't have fold, and let's just sim this so that these can kind of go away. What I wanted to do originally was just to layer clone these. And I wanted to get some air in here. Now, maybe I should put this underneath. This layer clone under. And it pops up in here, and I'll flip these normals. So now our normals are good. Now, when I sim these, let's sim this. And I had
you
air
also
pressure.
didn't have to flip the normals either. You could have left them in the same direction if you wanted as well.
And just put negative pressure. Okay. But let's say here, like I give this a pressure. And then when I tried to sim this, I had a lot of interpenetration between those two. Would the time seam warp or the time step help fix that?
It could. Is this at 9? This is the pattern piece that's at 9 particle distance, right?
This one's at 8.
Oh, this one's at 8. Okay. Now, is it still doing that? Because I would say to also apply the fold angle to those lines, those internal lines that are sewn to each other. Because I would do both.
Let me just hide the internal lines because they confuse me.
Oh, in the 3D, yeah.
Okay. And now if I sim this, I mean, I could run it on a sim.
I mean, you mean it with an animation, right?
Yeah, on an animation.
I think the problem's actually because of your normal direction. Because when an avatar is colliding with their normals, with the material, with your flipped normals, if he's going very fast, it may fix it with the scene time warp or the
okay.
time
So
step.
maybe it's not good that I actually flipped them.
Yeah, in this one case, I would just make it negative the equal amount.
Negative 60 is
That's gonna facilitate the most likely of successes in this case. Is how I'll say it.
Okay, I did not know that. That's really
yeah, because sometimes people will import their avatar with the normals flipped. And so if you like your avatar will be like solid pitch black and they're like, what's going on? And if you try to dress that and put clothes on it, the fabric normals will try to match the normal of your material. So of your avatar. So it ends up getting like sucked into the avatar. So if your avatar is colliding with your normal, it's still going to try to go to the correct side, which can cause that problem if it's going into the material too fast.
Okay, that I will test. That's great to know. I think it looks better when it's poofy. Like I like how that looks more.
Yeah, I also like the fold angle. The fold angle is a great thing to do like with both of them, pressure and the fold angle.
Yes, that looks much sharper. Oh, that answers so many questions. I'm like excited. I'm trying to come up with more questions. But so I didn't really have problems with this one though. So you can see this one here doesn't have to flip normals.
Yeah. Yeah, that should be fine.
But it was just more here.
Because that's where his legs are running through. If this is a running animation.
Yeah, they're gonna be running a lot. The story has more action. Well, the other one had some action too. So but there will be a lot of movement here. And this does definitely look better when it's poofy like that. Okay. I think that's it for my questions. And I'm really excited to go back and like mess around with these things.
Yeah. Also, I would again, I remind you on this guy. Make sure his buttons are they going through anything, or are they just on top?
I think they're just on top.
Okay.
But I don't mind if they're. I don't even care if there's collision as long as I don't see it.
Yeah, like that's all that matters. If you end up with a problem, you can also cheat it by applying another layer of sewing layers to it, and you can force it to also be another layer up.
So I can.
You can do it even without layers. Just keep in mind, like don't make it like super high, but it can help apply. It's basically kind of like applying a layer value to the buttons without causing the layer collision issue. But if they end up ever causing you a problem, you can kind of brute force anything that's imported as a button in that way.
Okay, that's awesome.
I say brute force, I say you're breaking a couple of my rules, but do as I say, not as I do.
For us, brute force is like manually fixing it, and that's really slow. Like the idea that I can just go, oh, let's just adjust the setting. To me, that's not brute force.
Yeah.
So what I was doing was, if I have certain problems, is resculpting it, but that sucks.
Oh, yeah, that's not fun.
No, it's actually really, really slow and time consuming. So this will help things move a lot faster for us too.
Yeah. And then I guess I know we talked about with the texturing. If you really, really wanted, you could start cutting up those patterns where they have the internal lines. You can still apply the fold angles to them as well. It will make your simulation slower. Just keep that in mind. Like there's more to calculate.
What do you mean if I cut up?
If you cut apart, you see where the quilting is happening. Those lines. We did talk about it earlier, where you can cut those into separate individual pieces,
Like
so that you
this?
can get those edge loops if you are trying to like apologize or do anything specifically there.
And then you can still get the fold angle on these guys?
Yeah, no matter so long as it has a sewing relationship, you can apply a fold angle and you can apply the pressure.
How do you
without
apply a fold angle onto these edges?
oh wait, did you make sure you cut it with sewing? If you don't have a sewing relationship there, hit the B as in boy hotkey for me.
B like
Oh,
this?
okay.
So I sewed it back up.
Oh, okay. Right click and choose right click that line and choose cut and sew.
Okay.
So now there's a sewing relationship there. So if
Mhm.
you use the edit sewing tool or the B as in boy hotkey, you can right click that sewing line or probably both of them. And you still have those options for the fold angle and fold strength.
Okay, very cool.
So it does separate them. The only thing that's negative about it is that it does cause your simulation to be a little bit slower just because there's more in the scene.
I can see that. I don't think I would actually even cut them though.
Yeah. Sometimes some people do just so they can apologize a little bit faster, but it's up to them. But I know you guys aren't doing that.
No, for us, we don't apologize anything for our clothing. Like it's just completely not necessary because why do we? Well, if you think about it, like why do you need good topology in the first place? It's normally so that it can be rigged, right? So our clothing is not rigged. It's just completely simulated and it's not necessary. It also looks better, what I found, and this is contrary to anyone who's like modeling. It looks better when it's triangulated. It has more details.
Yes. And that is why Marvelous Designer will force everything to be tries whenever you're working at it. It's not a bug. It is intentional.
You're with triangles, you have that extra point instead of having a square. When I learned 3D, everything was in quads.
Yeah.
And again, if this was going to be a rigged asset, you would want this to be in quads, but we're getting much more details. So we also bring it into Unreal, it gets triangulate anyway. So yeah. Let's see. Well, what is the software? It was answered. This is Marvelous Designer. And is this a new version? This is the latest version, right?
This is version 12. Yes.
Yeah. So it's also backwards compatible, which I really like. So I'm able to open this up in 10 if I want to.
Yeah. Do you keep in mind? I've had a couple of people break them. You can open up in 10 within reason. The further back you go, the fewer features that it will have, and the fewer, if you've used features in the more recent version, the older version may lose those features. So when you try to, depending how far you step back, you can lose some of your work if you're not careful.
Yeah, I would. You're right. I've done that, but you are asking for trouble if you're just doing that all the time.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to do that anyway.
Some people have, just because someone's working in 8 and then their friend is working in 12, and then they like bounced a lot with animation. It's mainly just the animation, just
Like
because there's so many new animation features.
Yeah, I would think that's different.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do much more tests in 12 before I final this character. So I'm probably going to make some adjustments. And then he will go to texturing, like Caught. So let's see. Does anyone have any questions? Because this stream went by really fast for me. I don't know how it was for anyone else, but it went by really quick.
I never have enough time on streams. It's only 2 hours.
Well, for sometimes for us, 2 hours, it tends to go by pretty quick. But today, especially, felt like really fast. So, no questions popping up in the stream here.
So we have 7 minutes left. If you have any questions or want us to demo anything, feel free to ask now.
You guys have Megan on here. Anyone regular follower on the Gnomon stream, you should really ask if you have a question. Oh, we did get some questions, but
we did.
Yeah.
I will try to make. Rosemary has scrolling through the thing. I would like to. Hopefully, we'll have some updates to our website. Hopefully, we'll have. Hopefully, I can just make a checklist for everybody. I keep making checklists for like best practices and put them in like the forums, and I put them in the Discord, like in specific like locations that no one else can edit. But it is always hard to find.
I just blocked something.
Oh, I saw.
Yeah. It looks like I can access on that side too. Yeah, that was spam.
Oh, good. I was curious.
Yeah. I haven't tried to do that to anybody until now.
Yeah. Yeah, we get the unhinged weirdos. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Our stream is usually doesn't have that. I think we usually have really cool people and some regulars.
I mean, I have really cool people too. We have great people. I love our regulars.
Well, not that your people aren't cool. They are super cool.
But we're just the ones that get we're the company names, so we get the unhinged like spam bots sometimes. I'm sorry.
No, it's not. That was totally fine. So let's see. What am I showing here? Just for a little quilted. Yeah, we went for. There's a lot of like thought processes. Let's see.
Every time you guys see me like do this on the screen, I'm just like looking really close at this at my screen and at the avatars.
At least you're facing it. I'm like looking over to the side because I have one monitor over here and then one in front. So I'm never looking at the camera. So for those who are curious and maybe new to the stream, this is what the character looks like once it's textured. So you can see, we actually don't see the torn edges so much here, but you can see a little bit of it, right?
Oh yeah.
Some of that part here. And it really does help if you shape it first, right? So some of the torn edges around here. And we went for a quilted look. One of the things was in our pipeline, I didn't want to choose cloth that was like very fuzzy because it would have a lot of hairs you have to attach. So I tried to do more fine, at least tried to do more fine. His face will probably definitely have some fuzz, but I did try to keep it a little bit flatter. So
I really like it. Also, just as someone who sews, I really like the quilting as it is. So I'm like, ooh, yes,
I like
quality.
For me, I love to quilt inside Marvelous.
Yeah.
If I were to make up a bunch of stuff, well, you can see there is quilting.
Mhm.
So some of this again is in the texture. Let's pull, but it really does help just to have it as much as you can in Marvelous first. I'll pull them. It's just for anyone to kind of see. Thank you so much. Character is awesome.
That's actually Sean. He's one of our staff that helped play the. We all kind of raced. He's one of the ones that helped find one of the options.
Thank you so much, Sean. It's going to help us so much, especially like, again, the short's going to be like 10 minutes and there's going to be clothing simulation probably on every shot. So I don't, unless there's a shot where there's no character, I think maybe one shot that we know of or two shots that won't have cloth sim, but we will have a lot. And then if you just want to see what this looked like here, these were all quilted or double-sided with some air pressure. And then our final result here, just bringing it back out with shadows. And it should look better once we get it rendering properly with nicer lighting, because this is in Substance Painter. Yeah.
It can only go up from here. I mean, that looks great too.
Thank you. It should only go up. Sometimes things go backwards.
Sometimes. It's just like, oh, you want fur here? It's like, no, I don't. No, I don't. 10 minutes later, I've put fur on it. No.
Yeah. That's just a CG process. That's like for everything that for anybody on any company, whether you're big or small, nothing is perfect. Let's see.
It's a design choice.
Evening, do Gnomon plan on doing streams focusing on rigging? We had a rigger last stream, and we're gonna see if he wants to come back. And we did actually have a couple questions. Not on this one. Again, it was the previous stream. So hopefully we'll have him come back. You can check out the previous one. And then Miguel hanging out here. Great stream. Thanks, Miguel.
Thanks, Miguel.
And I think that's it for this.
Oh.
Thank you so much for joining us on the stream. I learned a lot, right? I have been using Marvelous for quite a time, but sometimes there's just new features and I just don't know what they are. I haven't tried refitting. And just as, to me, the simulation stuff is much more demystified. I always wasn't sure what these things were, but now I do.
Yeah. So. Now you have
more
at your disposal. More at your disposal. Just be mindful and be thoughtful in how you work. I know you will be, but I'm looking at the chat over here, and I'm looking at my Discord channel, and I'm like, be thoughtful in the knowledge, and just remember the basics.
I always follow the basics. Yeah. I would not mess with the settings first that I learned today. I would try to just get everything to work on default. And then I mess with it when I'm having certain issues. Yeah. We tested our character with running because we knew that could be a problem. So there was no point in just a simple walk. It was probably going to work out fine. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see this. Let me know if you have any more questions in the future. And thank you again for having me on.
Thank you for joining us. This has been really awesome for me and hopefully awesome for all our viewers. And then thank you, Rosemary. Thanks.
Hey, we love Rosemary.
Yes. And let's see. Another message.
Break rules. Listen, if you break, that is on you. That is on you. You are making that conscious choice.
Poop San. Nice name.
Yeah. Like, listen, you can break the rules, but don't come crying to me when you've broken the rules.
Okay.
And you can, Tran. That guy can.
I don't even want to break the rules because you're just asking for trouble. And if you're doing every shot, like hundreds of shots like that, it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
I will say that there's like, I do follow basic rules. My things are life size. I test it out. I make clothing that fits my character. Like, you can't make a shirt that's too small for your character.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Right. I do
listen to her, everybody.
Yeah.
please.
Like one of the things that happens a lot to sometimes I see is like the first time you make it, someone makes a pair of pants and there's no room for the butt,
And then
right?
it's just like halfway down their leg and they're like, what's going on?
Like these
And
are
I'm
the
like,
pants and there's no room for the butt.
yeah.
So I do follow all that. My clothing is made to fit the character. So I always make sure that it actually relaxes. Just picture like if you don't know how to make clothing in real life and you make clothes, like if I made clothes for the first time and I put it on, it probably wouldn't fit very well. And if I were to walk around in it, I would probably look really weird. So you want clothing that fits your character in Marvelous.
Yes.
Yeah.
Spandex. Yes. Spandex,
Spandex.
Rosemary.
And I don't make clothing too small for my character because it will have problems when you sim because you're doing something yeah.
Especially
So
animation after that.
yeah. And then that's a lot of the stuff that we're animating everything. So yeah. So that's it for the stream. Thank you, Lenovo, and thank you, AMD and Gnomon for making the stream possible. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, Megan.
Bye. Thank you for having us and have a good day, guys. See you guys.